This week on Quality Digest Live, we found out how the recent midterm election results match up with Main Street realities.
Plus, getting to the root cause of the obsession with root causes. There you go. That and more when we come back.
Today's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Hexagon Metrology. Hexagon carries the widest range of quality brands. With an extensive support network, Hexagon is also your partner. Hexagon Metrology. We are metrology.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for November 21st, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. So, you know the Internet of Things, right? IoT, we call it.
IOT.
IOT. We've talked about this many times on the show. How, everyday devices are connected to the internet so that they can be controlled or monitored. Your car, for instance, or garage door opener, or heating and air conditioning, pretty much everything is connected, or soon will be. Research company, Gartner Incorporated, forecast that 4.9 billion, that's billion with a B, connected things will be in use in 2015. That's up about 30% from 2014. They expect that number to reach 25 billion by 2020. But
That's going to be about 3 per person.
Yeah.
At that point.
I know, it's 3 per person?
25 billion is going to be about 8 billion people on the planet at
that
point.
On the planet, yeah, exactly.
It's about 3 per person, yeah.
And that's, so that's the question. What's this really mean?
Yeah.
Well, according to Gartner, they estimate that IoT, the Internet of Things, will support total services spending, and this is the United States, I'm assuming, $69.5 billion in 2015 and $263 billion by 2020. Consumer applications, no big surprise here, will drive the number of connected things, while enterprise IoT will account for most of the revenue. So Gartner estimates that about 2.9 billion connected things will be in use in the consumer sector alone in 2015 and will reach over 13 billion in 2020. And I believe we have a slide here with a couple details on it. So from an industry perspective, manufacturing, utilities, and transportation will be the top 3 verticals using IoT. And I believe we see on our slide there, obviously consumer products have the most. But by 2020, the ranking is going to change, with utilities being actually in the number 1 spot, manufacturing being in the 2nd spot, and government will be 3rd. Smart meters, again, no big surprise here, are really going to account for most of the growth in the utilities market. So all of this comes at a cost, of course. With more connectivity comes more risk of data breach or devices misbehaving, something the medical device community is concerned with. Also, what do you do with all of this data being collected? Do you even want or need to collect it? Well, of course you want to collect it.
Sure.
If the data's there, you want to collect it. But you may not know what to do with it. I can't see anyone really wanting to throw it all away, but what do you do with it? Well, there have been some interesting things in the news related to this, particularly in the security and privacy industry, in security and privacy interests within the consumer and within the consumer industry in particular. There's a classroom management app, for instance, called Classroom or Class Dojo, which is used by millions of schools and school teachers and students, which does in fact collect some student activity data. And although the company does not share that data with third parties, it has recently vowed to delete student data after 1 year. So there were some concerns here that this data is being collected on student activity during the classroom. It's kind of a behavioral app for students to kind of reinforce behavior, good behavior, bad behavior in the classroom. And there was some concern that this data is going to hang around forever on the internet, and is it going to cause some sort of harm? So the company said, look, we'll just delete these records after the year, and we're assuming kind of like after the school year. Obviously in the news recently, automakers have recently agreed on how to handle personal data security for owners of connected vehicles, and look for almost all vehicles to be connected, not too far in the future. So companies with IoT devices know that consumers are concerned, and more likely than not, they know that the government is concerned, and they want to do their own policing before somebody forces it onto them. So IoT is a big issue, security is a big issue, but I think it's enough of an issue that people know they got to step up and address these issues before the government steps in and says, wait, the privacy thing is getting out of hand. We're going to start enforcing some sort of rules here. So
one of the things you touched on there that I thought was really interesting was this idea that data potentially lives forever. And that data that's gathered on a child, for instance, a student in school, could follow that person through their adulthood and could potentially affect the way that people in the future would perceive that person.
Right.
And this is a big issue. This is an issue with the fact that, again, data potentially, with the cloud now especially, and who knows what's going to be in 10, 15, 20 years, could potentially live forever and could influence you forever. So how do you balance the need to, let me say, use data to look at it as a non-personal thing that you can maybe sell to or sell towards or sell for or use in some way versus privacy, issues of people's rights to not get sold to and just basically be anonymous if they choose to be anonymous. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how all this is going to shake out. I mean, we're in the media business, so it's intimately familiar with us too.
Right.
I don't know what's going to be in 20 years.
And people, and to a certain extent, people also like that this data is out there because things are being custom shaped for them, which is kind of nice, but that you're giving up your privacy in order to get that customization.
Customization is another issue we talk about a lot, that businesses and individuals want customization, but again, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
We think that privacy battle's been fought and lost already, but maybe it hasn't. Hopefully it hasn't, because I think there's still more to talk about with this. Really fascinating story there. So we'll certainly be presenting IoT issues to you in the future here on Quality Digest Live. All right, well, as many of you know, one of the really key events in the quality industry takes place right now, every November. This event provides an opportunity to reflect on the nature of continuous improvement and honor those organizations who have been judged as the best of the best. I'm talking, of course, about the Baldrige National Quality Award, the United States' highest honor for performance excellence. Last week, U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker announced this year's winners of the Baldrige, and we reported them to you in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. And drum roll please, the 4 outstanding organizations honored with the 2014 Baldrige Award are as follows. PricewaterhouseCoopers Public Sector Practice in the service category.
That's interesting.
Yep. Hill County Memorial in the healthcare category. St. David's Healthcare also in the healthcare category. And Elevations Credit Union in the nonprofit category.
Interesting companies.
Interesting group of companies there. Some very small, some very large. Organizations can win a Baldrige in any one of 6 categories, including manufacturing, service, small business, healthcare, of course, education, and nonprofit. The winners are going to receive their Baldrige Award at the Quest for Excellence Conference this April in Baltimore. The Quest for Excellence is an annual event that presents the opportunity to meet and mingle with current and past winners and learn what it takes to compete for and ultimately win a Baldrige Award. So it's interesting. You talked about the sectors that we see healthcare again twice now.
Right.
Increasingly, we see healthcare is the sector that's most taking advantage of the Baldrige, and we've talked to Baldrige people about this as well. Bob Fangmeyer mentioned this as well last time we talked to him. That we're not seeing manufacturers really win this anymore, but we are seeing the precepts of the Baldrige pushed down now to service industries and to healthcare, and they take advantage of that, and the kind of the Baldrige protocols, the Baldrige criteria, as they say, which is always very important, is what people use to improve their organizations. In healthcare, it's really, really important.
Right.
But yeah, you see a company like PricewaterhouseCoopers, their service sector.
Or credit union.
Using this. And you really think about how flexible the Baldrige really is, that it can encompass all these different sectors, different sizes of organizations. It's really a very interesting program for anyone, especially in quality, of course. So to learn more about this year's Baldrige winners, including in-depth profiles of each organization, be sure to check out the story link just below the video player screen. In fact, as always, links to all the news items that Dirk and I are going to be covering on today's show and articles that we're going to be covering on today's show are available right down there.
Right down there. All right. Skills gap.
Yep.
Does it exist? Well, it kind of depends on who you talk to, but Quality Digest being an industry magazine, we talk to people in industry, which is what our editorial team did for the article Midterm Election Results versus Main Street Reality. So basically our team kind of springboarded off some U.S. Census data and also a recent ThomasNet report. Our team interviewed some Main Street companies to see just what is happening when it comes to hiring skilled workers and what companies are doing about it. But first, a few little facts. According to the U.S. Census data, about 99% of all employer companies in the U.S. have fewer than 500 employees. And by employer companies, we're talking about companies that employ people. So we aren't talking about mom and pop shops who don't employ anybody. They just employ themselves, and those don't count. These companies employ about 48% of the workforce. So companies under 500 employees employ about 48% of the workforce and account for about 42% of all wages. Now, ThomasNet's industry market barometer shows a larger percentage of small businesses from their respondents, most likely due to some bias on who uses ThomasNet and would have completed the survey. But just the same, about 77% of the ThomasNet survey respondents had fewer than 500 employees. 60% had 100 or fewer employees. So what these two data sources show us is that small business, fewer than 500 people, is Main Street America. And these companies, according to ThomasNet, are seeing and expecting growth. Business is turning around. Of the nearly 500 North American manufacturers that responded to the ThomasNet survey, well over half, about 58%, reported business growth in 2013, and nearly 2/3 expect increases this year. But now what? And this is what's critical for these smaller companies, because it's kind of a less of an issue maybe for larger companies because they have more resources. But where is a satisfactory pool to hire from for manufacturing jobs, the so-called skills gap? So our team interviewed representatives from 3 small manufacturers. We interviewed people from PAL Manufacturing and Engineering, Tailored Label Products, and American Crane and Equipment. And they all reported some problems with the skills gap, finding skilled staff they needed to fill their skilled manufacturing jobs. One of our first people we talked to was Kevin Wolf. I think we have his quote up here. He's the general manager at PAL Manufacturing, and he told us that part of the problem, in my eyes, is that a lot of the younger generation is unaware of what manufacturing actually is, not understanding that you do use computers and robotics, and that you use both your hands and your mind. So what did PAL do? Well, they held seminars at the local Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, and they pay people to go to school. So essentially, this company is addressing the skills gap by paying to create their own workforce. Another company, we talked to Tracy Tenpenny, VP of Sales and Marketing for Tailored Label Products. She echoed the same problem. He told us that his company gets involved in the community, having senior employees get involved with fun activities with the younger employees that they hire. They hold employee town hall meetings. They even share things like where the company is in terms of gross margin dollars and where they are with profits. In other words, this company to address, let's say, the skills problem or retaining people is to create an environment that attracts and keeps employees through outreach into the community and through company transparency. So Tenpenny told us this. I think we got his quote here. Ultimately, our employees want to understand what's going on. Unlike old school manufacturing where everything was held tight to the vest, we're only going to tell you what you need to know. We're like, no, we're going to tell you pretty much everything. This has helped the company from a recruiting standpoint. There's a lot of competition among job seekers to work for TLP. So what are we talking about here? We've got communicating what manufacturing jobs actually entail and outreach into the community to share manufacturing knowledge and encourage manufacturing jobs. These are key elements to helping generate your own workforce. Generate your own workforce and keep your own workforce, because you need to be doing that, because that is part of the solution to the skills gap. But there's still a problem. These companies and other companies that we've talked to say there's this problem of employees retiring faster than vocational schools and other sources can create new employees. The boomers are leaving faster than the millennials or vets or others can be fed into the system. Karen Norheim of American Crane told us this. She said, the problem is that people are retiring almost as fast as we can hire them. It's kind of like we're on a treadmill. We're filling vacated positions, but not really getting ahead of the game. We're not too worried about the near future, say the next 2 years, but this window will pass. So for their part, American Crane held a manufacturing day tour. They invited almost 50 students that are participating in a local STEM program, science, technology, education, and math. So these companies and many more we have talked to over the years tell us that yes, they are having a hard time finding qualified workers. Critics will say, well, you aren't paying enough, or you're expecting way too much out of new hires in terms of skills. Who knows? It's a growing argument. It's out there. People are arguing both sides. But my feeling is that a company that is growing, as Main Street companies are over the last couple of years, and having problems meeting customer demands because of this growth, those companies are not going to shoot themselves in the foot by playing cheap in paying for qualified employees. I mean, I don't think they're going, oh yeah, sure, we can't grow our company and meet demand, but I'll be damned if we're going to pay a decent wage for a skilled worker. That's not going to happen. Maybe in a stagnant economy, you might see that, but not one that is growing the way it is right now. I mean, from our perspective as somebody who follows industry, the skills gap is real. Everybody that we talk to says that it is hard finding skilled employees to come in and fill the jobs that are being vacated by the boomers that are leaving. People that have a lot of skills that have acquired them over maybe a lifetime of work, and these guys are leaving, and the people that are coming back in from the workforce, there's a lineup. Matter of fact, one of the things that we heard is that the schools that are the vocational schools, one guy said, we've got a line of people at one side who want to get into our schools, and they're crowded, and on the other side, we got people waiting for these jobs. Yeah. And he says, when people talk about the skills gap, he says it's kind of surreal. I mean, we're seeing it. We got people lined up on both sides.
Yeah.
It's
pretty funny.
Pretty funny.
Well, you know what strikes me in listening to the story and reading the story and looking at the three companies we talked about, all three of those companies are doing one thing in common. They're investing. They're investing in this, and they're planning for it. They're not just letting it happen. I think that the skills gap is a real thing, but it can be averted or it can be handled if individual organizations plan to address it, and they invest a little bit in it. And I'm not just talking about money. I mean, invest in time, invest in mentorship, invest in thinking about what you need and what you want. Because if you do that and you do it in an orderly fashion, I think you're going to get what you want. I think you're going to get the people that you need. And not only that, we talked about onboarding employees last week as well. You're going to be able to bring them in the right way. They're going to stay, and they're going to grow with the organization.
Right.
You can plant a little vegetable, right? But I mean, it's not going to really develop and be what you want unless you water it and you take care of it, right? So I mean, it's the same thing with employees. You have to really get them in there, but you also have to make sure you support them once they're there and help them grow, because that's going to really give you the employees that you want. So
absolutely.
Really good advice. So read that article and check it out if you're struggling with that issue and learn a little bit about the skills gap and how you can address it yourself. All right, well, if there's one thing that we can all agree on in this crazy, argumentative, and debate-filled industry of ours, it's that the root cause analysis process is a universally good thing, right?
Right.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
In his article, Time to Do a Root Cause Analysis, with the subtitle, On the Obsession with Root Cause Analyses, frequent QD contributor Davis Salistracci wonders just how universally beneficial RCA really is. Davis's interesting and I think valid argument is based on the notion that many, if not most of us, still don't really understand the nature of variation and how it works in real-world environments, whether on the factory floor or in the hospital. And Davis has a specific focus on hospital and healthcare environments. Davis has a line that he likes, and he uses it, different variants of it in different times, frequently in his articles, and it makes his point really well. He says, your process is perfectly designed to get the results it's getting. Makes sense. But what does it mean? Well, quite simply, it means that if you want real change, if you want real improvement, and if you want it to have a real lasting effect on your organization, you've got to change the system that's fed by the processes. Changing the way you train people to work with those processes, giving them praise, raises, or promotions when they do better, or yelling at them, demoting them, or firing them when they do worse, isn't going to change anything. It's not going to help you achieve real change. You can refer, as usual, in this case, to Deming's red bead experiment.
Right.
You pull a red bead, pull a black bead, right? But I mean, if it's 20% red beads,
right,
you're going to get 20% of
right.
that when you pull the bead. You see, the problem is that confusion over variation, which I referred to earlier, specifically the difference between special cause versus common cause. Davis believes, and I agree, that human beings want to see variation as a result of special causes that can be fixed, often in essentially meaningless ways. In truth, most variation is a result of common causes driven by flaws in the design of the overall system itself and the processes that feed that system's inputs and outputs. This also speaks to the process being in control or out of control. A process can be in control and still be generating lots of problems if that's how the system is designed, so to speak. Again, your process is perfectly designed to get the results it's getting. If you design it, or if you haven't designed it properly, and you're getting these problems, you're going to be in control, like we talked about.
Right.
You're going to be within that band of control, but you're still not getting what you want out of your system, right? You see where this is headed. If a typical manager looks at a problem in the organization and suspects or assumes it's a result of a special cause, the root cause analysis process will likely find, quote unquote, that it can be corrected, quote unquote, by addressing those individual causes, maybe through a different kind of training or repositioning workstations, or maybe even, God help us, through incentives, right? We see that all the time. But it's likely that those individual symptoms point to a broader issue. Looking at variation as stemming from common causes that connect all inputs with all outputs in an entire system is a far more complicated root cause analysis task than that which is normally undertaken. But without that perspective, RCA is bound to fail, or at best appear to succeed for a limited time. Common cause variation can sometimes yield short-term data that appears to support a trend towards improvement until it doesn't. It's common cause variation, folks, likely seen in processes that are technically, again, in control and just as likely causing huge problems. According to Deming, treating common causes as special causes will tend to worsen problems, not improve them. Big problem. Big problem that people look at their process and think that it's caused by a special cause, and it's really common cause. And you try to attack a special cause and you mess up something that maybe wasn't messed up already.
A common cause, yeah.
Make it really worse.
Yeah.
Look, this is a deeply important issue. I'm not doing it justice in these couple of minutes here in this brief summary, and I'm sure I'll hear from Davis on that. Davis's article is available, and it's online. Of course, he covers this topic in one way or another in practically all of his articles that he writes for us, and Donald Wheeler does the same. Talks about these issues related to common cause and special cause and interpreting data and process variation. So if you want to learn more, I would strongly urge you to visit us online at www.qualitydigest.com, of course, and type in Content by Davis Balistracci at the search bar at the upper right-hand side of our homepage. Heck, you can check out Donald Wheeler's work in the same way. Just type in Content by Donald Wheeler, Content by Davis Balistracci in our search page. It'll bring up all the articles that these guys have written for us, all their columns. There's many of them. We're blessed to have, I think, a very high level of statistical analysis work being done and articles that break it down in a simple fashion, although it's complicated stuff.
Right.
So if this is what you're working in, or if you want to know more about it, definitely check out these guys' work, because it's really good. It's very accessible, again, for what is not always such an accessible topic. And again, I think we're blessed to have those people writing for us.
Yep. And also, actually, another way to look at anytime you're on any article, there's a little link right above the article that says Author Archive. Mm-hmm. If you click on the Author Archive link, that will bring up all articles by that author as well. So that's kind of another way to find things. Okay. A few weeks ago, I had a chance to attend Capture 3D's user conference in Anaheim, California. And as usual, it was an awesome event. Some fascinating case studies on how 3D metrology is being used in a variety of industries, and of course plenty of eye candy for metrology geeks, looking at the latest ATOS products from German metrology company GOM. Capture 3D is GOM's distributor here in the US. We had a chance to take a look at some new software. It's called ATOS or ATOS Professional, which basically does all the work for you when setting up a 3D inspection on ATOS equipment. It's pretty cool, and we recorded that Tech Corner while we were down there, so let's take a look. I'm at the Capture 3D Innovation 2014 conference in Anaheim, California, where I'm looking at some advancements in 3D metrology that are driving manufacturing forward. And here to talk about one of those advancements is Josh Old of Capture 3D. Josh, we're going to be looking at what a software solution that really helps in inspection part programming.
Yeah, this is an ATOS scan box, which is fully automated inspection. What you see here is this is this is called a virtual measuring room, and what this allows us to do is measure parts virtually or offline before we ever get to a manufactured part. So what I can show you here is I'm going to kind of get rid of some of this stuff here so we can see what we're doing.
Now, this is the purpose of this is to get away from kind of the manual programming that used to happen.
Get rid of the manual programming so that you have more of a repeatable metrology solution. So that once you get this done, you can have somebody just load parts into it and have a full inspection completed. So this is the ATOS scan box. This is what we call a VMR, or virtual measuring room. What this gives us the ability to program parts virtually for production inspection. So in here I can bring in a fixture model, or CAD. We bring the model of the actual part itself, and I can utilize this model to do inspection. So in this case, I've already brought in the inspection plan. We're going to get rid of a couple things here so we can actually show you the process. In here I brought in surface points, slots, holes, trim edge points. For sheet metal inspection, a lot of these features are what they inspect. They'll inspect trim edge for spring and trim. They'll inspect slotted holes, circles, and surface areas, or surface points. Now, from that inspection plan, I can tell the software how to build it on the actual part. The software comes with what's called the iInspect button, which I can actually tell the software when it finds scan data, use this function to build these nominal elements. So one is called gray value feature, so we're going to use that. And for surface points, we're going to use intersect with mesh. And basically, we're creating an inspection plan for the actual data that we're going to collect right on the nominal geometry. So that just takes a second to link up. And now for surface points, we're going to intersect with mesh. Now, the new software, the new V8 software, this software is called ATOS Professional. It is manufactured by GOM in Germany. And the new function that I believe no other software does is we have the ability now to auto-program features that we want to inspect on our part. So instead of manually creating robot positions, which I can do with this system. I can drag the robot around. I can shift click on the part and tell the system to go to a certain spot if I wanted to. I can now generate automatically all the positions just by clicking on create measurement positions. And what it's going to do, it's going to find every one of those features that we've highlighted over here in the Explorer, and it's going to create the positions that it needs to measure that feature. And because we use volume-based scanning, the surface will come with it. So now you can see here that it has generated all of the positions that it's needed. You can see them as little gray boxes. And I can even walk through these positions virtually so I can see the path that the robot is going to take to see if I need to change anything or I need to add anything. But most of the time you don't have to do anything. With the way this is working now, we're virtually guaranteed that every one of those features will be measured and calculated. So now what we're taking that could take hours to program a part in seconds. Now the next step is to run it back live. So at this point, we have all our inspection, we have our positions of our robot. Now we can actually run the part.
Okay, so now you could do this offline, you could do it anywhere. Yep. Now you would bring it into your shop floor, wherever you had the scan box, yep, and you would hook it up and run it.
Yep, so now we're gonna bring it in to what's called kiosk mode. So kiosk mode is an isolation program that allows the customer to isolate whoever's operating the system out of the program itself, and only gives them small options to run parts. And in this case, we can have multiple inspection plans. So in this case, this is my scan box scan of this part, and it only allows me to pick that program, and we can have RFID readers on the fixtures that bring up the actual program that you need to run. And the idea is that you can just start it, and it'll run through that inspection, the program positions, it'll run through the actual scan of the part, and then it'll give you a report, go, no go, anything that you want to actually do for an inspection. And then you can have it say it's a good part, it's a bad part, load a new part, hit go again. Right now it's going to value all the points of the frame. So the first time that we run this, we can value all of the dots. And then after that, it could just be part scanning. So we want to make sure that our points that we're using for the actual scan are accurate. And if there's any change to the fixture, we want to be able to revalue all of those little white dots and make sure they're in the same position as the reel is. So this is the process of that.
Okay, and so then after this, then it goes into the actual scan.
Yep. After this, it'll go in the actual scan. And then once that's done, the next part you run, it won't need to do the photogrammetry. It will just scan the part. Now it's scanning the part. So what you're looking at, if you can see it, is the actual collection of surface data. And on the screen, you'll actually start to see the data being collected. Now the part itself is going to rotate with the part and the reel. So this is actually a representation of how the part is sitting on the, and you can have anything on the screen that you want. If you don't want this, you can get rid of it. You can actually change it right now. We can rotate it around and do whatever we want with it. The idea is that this is for production inspection. We can have multiple parts sitting next to us ready to get measured. The operator, all he does is load parts. So now it's finished with the scan. So once it's done, it brings up whatever you want. Once you actually have the data collected, we can have multiple report pages showing different things, from title pages to surface profile color maps, plus and minus deviation. We can actually take that and be very specific on where the deviation is and how far it is by adding deviation labels to it. We can have full go, no go gauge, so we can check this part by a pass fail. We can also do full trim edge points, so we can check this whole entire trim edge as a color map. And we can also do the same thing that we do with a full field color map, and we can put pick points along the edge and tell you exactly what the deviation is there. And not only that, but our features, our elements that we want to check. So we can check slotted holes, circles. We can get labels like this where we have a nominal location, an actual, the deviation, and a pass fail of that actual element. And these are, you can customize these labels to however you want to see them. Also the pages, they're fully customizable.
Okay, so what we saw here then really is just a very fast way to create an inspection program. Where really, basically all you're doing is selecting the features that you want, hit a button, and it does all the hard work for you.
Yep, does all the hard work for you.
Okay. Okay, Josh, well thanks for showing us. And this is just, what is this software, by the way?
This is called Atos Professional.
Atos Professional. Okay, Josh, thanks a lot. And there you go, Atos Professional. Pretty cool software. And once again, thanks to Capture 3D for letting us come down to their user conference and hang out and do all the metrology geeky kind of thing down there. It was a lot of fun. So once again, thanks for letting us come down there, guys.
Yeah, good group of folks, the Capture 3D team. Okay, well, that's our show for this week. But before we go, we'd like to offer thanks to today's sponsor. Hexagon Metrology is committed to helping you control your processes, enhance the quality of your products, and increase efficiencies. They empower you to stay one step ahead of a changing world with their wide range of product offerings, nearly 200 years of expertise, and an extensive support network. Hexagon Metrology, where quality comes together. For more information, click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this player screen.
That's right. Okay, well, thanks again for all of you guys for joining us, guys and gals, for joining us here on Quality Digest Live, and we will see you.
Yeah, not next week, because next week is the holiday, so no show next week.
We will not see you next week.
But we will see you on December 5th, and all of you, please have a great, safe, thankful Thanksgiving.
It will be a turkey coma.
That's right. We'll see you in December.
So long.
Bye.
fire.